back for another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. It is I, your host, Q, coming to you yet again from my mom's basement. And I'm joined by Brian Armstrong lookalike. Alex McShane is my co-host. And we are joined by special guest today, Texas Slim. Texas Slim, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Q. Thanks for having me on again, and good to see you.
It's great to have you on. I could see Alex's frustration with the Brian Armstrong jokes is waning thin at this point.
But they're getting very old at this point.
Joke will never die. Keep it going in the chat, guys. But in the meantime, I wanted to dive in with Texas Slim on what exactly is the Bitcoin Beef Initiative that you and your team have been drumming up from the ground floor.
Yeah, it's the Beef Initiative right now is we're doing education. We're basically we're promoting things. We're a promotion company. We're a production company. We're a lot of things. What we are is about a lot of awareness. I started everything with the Beef Initiative with a news a Substack, and it was called The Harvest of Deception. And what it was based on was basically the industrial food complex and kind of where we are within our food supply, how it's basically processed, where it comes from, starting from the soil up. And so with that education, we've evolved into, I'm from Texas, we're from cattle country. So I decided to call something the Beef Initiative. And what that is getting some awareness to basically how screwed up our human health is in the United States of America, how many corruption models are within our food industry itself, how it is used as a weapon against us and as a drug against us. And within that education, you have to have a solution. So the Beef Initiative is basically tying the consumers back into the ranchers themselves. We're cutting out all the middlemen and we're decentralizing animal protein, and we're doing it with the Bitcoin narrative and basically the ethos of what Bitcoin is all about. It's a new store of value for both the rancher, the animal producer, and the consumer themselves. We've got it to where we're selling beef now, and we're doing it decentralized, and we're accepting Bitcoin for beef. And I don't believe a lot of people are able to do that at this point because they do not have market access to those ranchers. And so we've got a lot of ranchers that have come on board that are joining it. They're educating themselves on Bitcoin. We're about to announce basically an education series for the ranchers. So this has kind of been a really good bridging gap of communication, of lifestyles, of market access to food. And so it's pretty broad, but that's kind of a general understanding.
So do you want to get into, for people who are born, like my co-host here, live their whole lives in a city, what is a rancher? What do you do?
Well, if you look at, we'll just say state of Texas, because that's where I'm from. So being from Texas, I grew up eating beef. So the guys that steward these animals, that take care of them and basically, bring them to your table is a rancher. They basically raise cattle. So they're cattlemen. And back in the day, it wasn't that big of a mystery, but as much as our food systems and supplies have been so centralized that really people don't even understand where beef comes from. It comes from a factory. That's what they know. And so there's a lot of education in understanding what a rancher is, what an animal producer is, what a grass farmer is. A lot of grass farmers are animal producers. All of our meat and our protein come from the soil, and it comes from those minerals from that soil, and that's where we get our strength. That's where we get our protein. So there's a lot of education in understanding what a rancher is and what beef is and what animal protein is, and basically the best source of that you can get.
So do you have other crops besides grasses to feed your cattle and sell?
Well, I mean, that's a broad question. I mean, of course, we have grains. You have all kinds of different edibles. You have forage. You can raise cattle on anything that is edible, that is basically, comes from the soil, that is something that they've always evolved into doing. Before we had cattle, we had bison in the United States. We had millions and millions of bisons, and they went across the Great Plains and they ate all the grasses that were across the Great Plains. So being a rancher, there's a lot of ways to be a rancher. Geography, locations of country where you are. In Texas, there's a lot of grass. There's a lot of grasslands. A lot of people have to do a lot of grain feeding of cattle. As we've grown, that's become a dependency for the rancher, that it got so centralized that now it's under the umbrella of Monsanto, Bayer, Cargill, these feed and seed companies that basically are chemical companies. And so looking at the beef initiative, we're educating what a regenerative farmer rancher is. And that's, it kind of goes in the territory, you know, it starts with the source of the seed of where this grass comes from or this feed comes from, not from a chemical company, but from the ground up.
Do you want to talk about some of the regenerative practices that your cattle partake in, especially when it comes to like crop rotation and stuff like that?
Well, what you're doing is the best way to look at this is you have acres and acres that you have that are natural, you know, grasslands, let's say. What a regenerative farmer rancher will do is he'll let those cattle or those animals, it could be sheep, it could be goats, it could be a lot of different animals that graze those grasslands and forage. And so what you do is you do section by section, and those animals will become the land tools of that grass. And what they'll do is they'll eat the grass down to a certain level, but they won't uproot the grass because the root systems in the soil is what's very important. So you keep the root systems basically intact. You let the land tools graze on that land, and then you'll move them into different sections of that land. Therefore, the soil keeps on growing, the grass keeps on coming back, and they basically become somewhat of a routine. And that's how you grow land or soil, and that's how you grow grass, and that's how you grow animal protein. And we've always done this. We just got off track, you know, within I always just like to it happened before 1971, but whenever the dollar became debased, this is when these chemical companies came in. We were doing basically bombs during World War II, and then we got into fertilizers, and then we got into pesticides, and then we got into genetically modifying seeds. We got into a way that we said, hey, we can feed the world with this type of new crop systems. Well, that eliminated a lot of the regenerative farming and ranching in the United States. But that's how my grandfather did it. And that's how all of our grandparents did it, was a regenerative way. We got off base after 1971 really bad. Eric Butts of the Nixon administration said, you're going to go big or you're going to go home. And that's when we started monocropping our lands, tilling up the land and not really using the soil like we had done for hundreds and thousands of years before now. And so it comes to the point where this type of monocrop farming and ranching with the pesticides, herbicides, basically killed the soil. We're coming up to a decade now that there's going to be a mass movement to try to hide that fact, or there's going to be a mass movement such as the Beef Initiative. It's going to say, hey, you're going to look back at history and you're going to see how we used to do it. This is the best thing for your health. This is the best thing for the soil. It's the best thing for the land. It's the best thing for our nation. And it's definitely the best thing for Bitcoiners.
Do you want to talk about how the government offers subsidies or tries to influence how you as a rancher, if at all, farm your land?
Well, as we've moved forward, I mean, most of cattle, everything's commodity markets, you know, grains, commodity markets. There's so much manipulation, basically subsidizing everything that is basically around our food system per se. You can go up to a lot of, and there's a lot of ranchers that it's not calling ranchers out here. It's not calling anybody. There's no judgment here. It's just we're here because we're here. But you can talk to, I'd say 10 ranchers that have to follow something, and they're basically under the USDA because you have to. If you're under that umbrella of USDA, you're going to have an insurance policy. And I usually ask ranchers, I say, where's the store value of your cow now? It used to be in the cow, and it used to be in the land itself. And it was something that you could leverage and saying, hey, I've got enough land, or I've got my cattle are healthy. I've got enough cattle to where I can leverage them throughout this year. And basically they're going to be a store of value that I can rely on. I think within the last 10 to 20 years, basically, the store of value of our cattle industry has become to where most of the time it's going to be in that USDA insurance policy. If you don't have that USDA insurance policy, you're going to be up a creek, man, because you're not going to have that leverage. And it does get subsidized. There's rules and regulations that are associated with this insurance policy. If you do not follow the insurance policy of something like something that Monsanto created, what's called the technology use agreement. If you don't follow that TAU agreement, basically you can't sell your crops or you can't grow your feed for your cattle. You can't do certain things under those USDA insurance policies. So you're basically, your means to an end is to follow that USDA insurance policy because it's based on loopholes, subsidies, and a lot of damn corruption. And ranchers are trying to get away from that umbrella to where they're not relying on the USDA insurance policy. They're not relying on any chemicals. And what they're doing is they're letting the land be able to be regenerated, grown, the soil to get healthy again, and use the land tools to do that, and therefore have a beef industry in which we came from. That's where Texas came from. It was from the soil and it was from the cattle. And it all started in 1878 in the state of Texas. And at that time, after the Civil War, we fed a nation. And that's where Texas came from. Well, that's what we're going to bring a new awareness, is that we're changing the model. We're going and we're decentralizing the beef industry in the state of Texas. We're going to do it with a regenerative protocol that's going to have a store of value called a Bitcoin protocol. And we're going to basically marry the two, and we're having a lot of successes doing that right now.
So for yourself, I guess, when did you get involved in Bitcoin, and maybe when did you first trade, value for value and receive Bitcoin?
First time I got into Bitcoin late, just like everybody else. I mean, I knew about it even back in 2012. I was in a different place and everything, but I dabbled in it a little in 2017. I had some family issues, and I didn't really get into Bitcoin per se as heavily as I am now until right before COVID. I'd gotten hurt. I've had a lot of injuries, pretty rough and tumble guy, but I kind of had an internal injury, and I started looking at Bitcoin as the same time I was looking back into food. And it became something that I started doing together. It's like, I want to understand what nutrition is again, because my internal injury was like a portal vein collapse, and say, man, I really got to look at my nutrition. So as I did that, I started studying Bitcoin, and I started seeing some similarities of ranchers and decentralization and stores of value. So the education went hand in hand, and I come from agriculture and ranching, and it really was a fun experiment to go into it together, and started to basically acquire Bitcoin and basically learning how to hodl, store value, just basically self-custody. And then we came to a point where I knew that the rancher really was not going to be somebody that would go out there and buy it at first, but they wouldn't mind accepting Bitcoin for their beef. So value for value exchange is what we started thinking about. And we built those on-ramps to where, the ranch can accept Bitcoin, and, the Bitcoiners can basically trade value for value, what they see fit for the beef.
It's amazing. I wish we had more of that where I am. We need to, I'd happily part with some Bitcoin for some good grass-fed beef.
Well, you can go to the Beef Initiative right now, beefinitiative.com, and order some beef. I mean, we've been selling, we've got proof of work, man. We've been doing this for a couple months. I haven't really advertised it. We've sold tens of thousands of dollars worth of regenerative grown good grass-fed beef from verified rancher that we're in partnership. And so we're selling, I think we sold 25 boxes of beef yesterday. So Bitcoiners they're flooding in. So join them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll check that out. Just on a side note, I don't know if there's something on your end, but your internet's kind of coming and going, so I'm having a little trouble hearing you right now. But
okay, is that better right now?
It might be. Maybe we'll turn it over to Q. You want to follow up a question while I'll order myself some beef here.
Texas Slim, I kind of want to touch on a little bit of what we were talking about before we actually started going live. And you kind of mentioned a little bit about the ongoing issue with fertilizer costs. I'd love for you to just sort of share with all of us maybe what's going on, and then how it's really impacting your guys' business.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about being regenerative. Once again, we're not relying on as many chemicals as a lot of people. People will use fertilizer on grasslands, and so they can have their grasslands for their cattle. Some people use just 100% compost. So as far as fertilizer itself, a lot of people don't understand where a lot of the fertilizer comes from is China, Russia, Ukraine, places like that, to where guess what? We predict in over a year that there's going to be some fertilizer shortages in the United States, and it's starting to become something that is playing out in real time. And so with fertilizer shortages, we won't go down deep into it. It's basically happening. And I guess you could look at like last year, if you were going to do a couple of tons of fertilizer, you're paying around 200 a ton, I believe it was. I believe Cole with KC Cattle the other day said it was about 1,200 a ton. So do the math on that. And that's where we are. And if you don't have fertilizer, well, let's look at the crops that we grow, because all of our wheat basically, well, the wheat in the global wheat market right now, China owns or has in possession 60% of the all wheat. Okay, so we don't have as much wheat as we used to. Last year's yields weren't as big. This year we're going into a drought. We don't have as much planting. Winter wheat in a lot of sections of the country were, they were basically already destroyed, or, as losses. So you see a perfect storm of not being able to grow the grains that rely on that fertilizer, grain shortages coming. So a lot of people that do basically still have to operate under that umbrella of these chemical companies, they're going to be hit the hardest. The small rancher or farmer doesn't rely on these chemical companies, they're not going to be as hit because they're doing things in a regenerative way. And that's what the education needs to be about, is we don't have to rely on these chemical companies anymore. We can do a vertical integration back into our food supply that starts with the soil with no chemicals. And we have a lot of ranchers across the United States that are doing that. And that's a lot of the awareness that we're bringing. The fertilizer shortages are out there, but if you're a true regenerative farmer rancher, you're not concerned about it, because that's not one of your basically inputs that you have to worry about.
Are there any inputs right now that you guys are feeling an impact due to the ongoing issues, whether it's the supply chains, Vladimir Putin, or whatever you want to blame it on? Is there some sort of strain that you guys are feeling?
Well, yeah, the fertilizer is already hitting them. Go from $200 a ton to $1,200 a ton. Yeah, people are just not going to do it. Fertilizer is a big one right now. It's huge. And it takes time for everybody to see it. It doesn't happen in real time. It's not like you see a glass of water and all of a sudden the water's gone. It's a drip approach. I would say you're really going to see some impacts into the United States economy and with our food supply. You'll definitely there'll be some painful times around September, October of this year. And as that happens, you're going to have a lot of people hoarding. You're going to have a lot of different people questioning where their food's coming from. So I say from here on May until September of this year is going to be pretty loud of a awakening. And a lot of people are going to start really focusing on where their food truly comes from and the dependencies, how centralized it truly is, and how we really don't have control over our food supply as citizens anymore. We used to, but the centralization of our industrial food complex took that away from us. And what we're really focusing on, just like, we're building nodes of localized, hyper localized communities that are sourcing their beef and their produce, in a decentralized way that's very, very effective. And I don't look at the news anymore, man. I haven't watched TV in 2 years. So I don't know what's going on out there, man. I'm too busy building and innovating. I really don't. I'm eating the best I've ever eaten, man. I got plenty of beef. I got plenty of friends. I can go anywhere across this country right now and go shake somebody's hand and have a place to stay. It's because we're looking at our freaking food supply, and we're not rent seeking into basically our desires of that it tastes good. We're looking about what nutrition is again, and it's a kind of a lifestyle. I'm trying to get the Bitcoiners to really join up. And I get it, man. A lot of people in the city. I lived in Austin for most of my professional life, and I was just as bad as not really sourcing my food in the way I should have. But people now in the Bitcoin community, and I like to say this, and it's not preaching, but if you're talking about Bitcoin and you're not talking about your food supply, you're missing a boat here a little bit. Because how can you complain about a decentralized and debased dollar and that your food is not as debased as that money supply, which you're looking at the USD dollar basically.
I want to unpack something that you said where I think it was very interesting. This isn't going to be just like the glass of water isn't just going to go empty. It's going to be a slow and steady drip. And you're anticipating this to really be protracted until September-ish. I'm not trying to like quote you on a date, but talk to us a little bit about like, I go to the grocery store. I've already seen the cost of things going up very steadily over the last 2 years. And so talk to me about like, what should I be expecting just from your perspective? Does this mean I'm going to see this steady increase continue, or is it going to start to accelerate or be more subtle? Talk to me a little bit about like, honestly, I'm just trying to figure out, do I need to run down to my butcher and buy so much?
Oh, that's cool. No. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. And that's what when I started writing The Harvest of Deception, man, I had to look at things and I had to say, where am I going? Where's my entry point into this understanding to where I can communicate it? And you got to get to the source of the seed or your freaking nutrition first. And if you can start looking at that, that's going to give you a compass that you can kind of go for. And you can look at that'll give you kind of a base layer of understanding of what we're up against right now. So one, you got to educate yourself on the basically the centralized food system in which we have to operate and consume our food. Whenever you check yourself and say, the only reason I ate today was because of a chemical company, and that is the truth. That is the truth. Most of our food in the United States is basically approved by a chemical company that is actually, approved by the FDA, which is a joke anymore. So if you look at it like that, say, I'm going to look at what the source of the seed of my nutrition is, you kind of get a start, and you can come and you can read basically the newsletter. There's plenty of information out there. But to be somebody in your position that's saying this city, what you need to do is, I tell everybody, hey, go shake a freaking rancher's hand and go up to them and say, I want to know everything about you and how can I help you? I want to help spread the word of who you are. Okay, somebody in this is not going to be able to do that. I'm asking people to come into the Beef Initiative. We're getting a crowdsourced index to where people are, if they're already using somebody, if they're in Manhattan and they're using somebody in New York State, come and bring your information, put it into the Beef Initiative so people can search that, and you can contact these ranchers that are out there, and we're bringing them into the Beef Initiative. As far as the grocery store, I don't go to the grocery store that much anymore. Maybe once or twice a month, man. I've got a full cow and 4 freezers. And so, I eat beef, man. I don't eat a bunch of other stuff, honestly. And I'm not like this hardcore carnivore. I eat bacon and eggs and beef, and I'll eat some vegetables and stuff like that. But you find whenever you kind of point your compass in this direction, you're freaking shopping, man. It's going to change, and you're not going to. When I go to the grocery store, I don't go to the middle aisles unless I'm getting salt and pepper and coffee, man. And beyond that, I hit the outside aisles, because all that stuff in the middle is trash. It's complete trash. And a lot of people, you start noticing what food is and what food is not. And basically all the fake commodities that they've injected into our food supplies, you just get some awareness. And once again, this is not a freaking judgment, and we're all guilty of this. But once you understand, especially a Bitcoiner, once you understand decentralization and store of value and first principles, you're going to start wondering, why am I eating this crap anymore? So, and I'm not a nutritionist, man. I'm not a diet guy. I'm not a fitness guy. I'm just a dude that grew up in Texas around cattle.
Hey, you may not be a diet or nutrition guy, but we all have a diet. We've all got, everybody has their nutritional habits, and I happen to agree with you. The only thing I've had today is a piece of salmon. I eat a lot of meat, but I like food that comes from the ground, food that is ingredients, not food that has chemicals and preservatives. You find that you don't need to eat as much, or at least I do. you have one good, a good steak a day, like you'll be all right. You'll be just fine. Just as anecdotal, but my great grandparents were farmers. They lived both past 100 years old. They ate one meal a day, a good homegrown meal. That was
Mm-hmm.
it. And they're healthy as can be.
Pretty much. It's so true. Well, you look at the whole history of the food pyramid, and it's just fascinating to follow. It's so easy to see how screwed up it is. And like you said, once you get on like a protein diet, like eating steak and stuff, which I do every day, you eat once, you eat every 20 hours, and you're not hungry. You have plenty of strength. You don't even think about food like a lot of people do and have to do, because a lot of people don't understand. Let me get some percentages here. 78% of people in the United States are either obese or overweight. One out of two of us is diabetic. That's because of our freaking consumption models. And that consumption model means, yeah, it means food, but it also means freaking audio and video and content. And a lot of the marketing out there, a lot of the misinformation is directly against you and making you confused about what's food anymore. And it's done by these global corporations that are doing this one world food group. It's not a lie anymore. It's happening. And there's an industry shift that's going on within our food industry. And just like they did in the early 70s, it's going to hit big time, and people aren't prepared for it. So if you look at that as far as an industry shift in your food supply, and most of our food supply is industrial, you have to have new industry. So these factories that are burning up as far as processing centers across the United States. What this is an industry shift to basically start processing food in a different way. And they're going to say it's because we're going to save the planet. And they're basically going to have a war on meat, which they're already doing. And they're going to say that animal protein is bad for you, which they've already been doing for years. And for the same amount of decades that they've been telling us that beef is bad for you, we've gone to where we are basically metabolically bankrupt. And that's because we're following that food pyramid. Our bodies do not understand what nutrition is anymore. And so there'll be food supply shortages, but there's also going to be a nutritional starvation that we're doing to ourselves and we're doing to our children right now. And people need to wake the hell up, because it's happening. And 46% of our children in the United States now are obese or overweight between the ages of 5 and 11. Most of that happened during COVID, and the shift is happening within food. And if you're going to go random into tasting food and basically eating it because it tastes good and not understanding what nutrition is, you're going to keep on consuming this consumption model that's going to lead to a shorter lifespan. It's that simple. And if you can't see it, you got your eyes closed.
I think one of the best lessons I ever learned, and I shout out my dear friend Mary Izzo, who taught me this like 6 years ago now. But to what Texas Slim has been saying, I know his internet's been a little spotty. So in case you missed it, the biggest takeaway for those of you who are city dwellers like myself, the grocery store is literally designed to poison you with every aisle that's in the middle of the store. If you only grocery shop on the outside of the store, where all the refrigerated stuff is, where the produce is, where the butcher section and the beef are, where the bakery is, that's where the non-processed foods are, because that's where they need to be refrigerated. I just wanted to re-emphasize that, because that was a huge learning lesson for me on my journey to like stop eating processed foods and like really understand what's in a food label. And I will not get off of this horse until Joe Consorti stops posting pictures of his damn Monster energy drinks. Those things are just fucking poison.
Hey, I'm excited, Texas Slim. Me and Chris just ordered our first boxes from y'all, so looking forward to try
awesome.
this. Yeah, I'm really excited, man. What's the so where does it come from? The stuff on the website. Do you have a hand in that ranching, or is that just
Yeah,
how does it work?
that's basically, it's a partnership that I formed. Yeah, that was a partnership that I formed with Casey Adler down there in right south of Boston. And so what we did, we went in there and I basically, I go out and I meet ranchers, and I kind of, basically it's Cole Bolton. He's like a fourth generation rancher here in the state of Texas. But what we did was we came to an early understanding, collectively understanding that Bitcoin is going to be a base layer of value for the rancher. And so we kind of orange pill coal, and then let's start selling this beef. And what we're doing, I'll say it again, we're doing a vertical integration into human health again, and we're doing it with the American rancher. And so Cole and I have partnered up, and basically from the soil to the grass, to the cow, to the producer, to the processor, to the supplier, we are one of those touch points now collectively as a partnership. So there's nobody can tell us, we don't have to ask for permission. We've done everything we're supposed to do as far as USDA in the state of Texas. We have our own processing center now. We don't have to rely on JBS, Cargill, National, and Tyson to process our animal protein. So that's what's moving forward in the state of Texas. And part of the beef initiative as well is that we're now advising people in the state of Texas, if you want to open up a microprocessor in the state of Texas, the gateway will be coming through the Beef Initiative Association, because we have proof of work, we have USDA precedents. And so by doing that, we're decentralizing our beef supply in the state of Texas, and we're trying to bring it to every state across the United States. And so those are those nodes that we're building. And it started with basically what we're providing you guys right now. That is regenerative beef. It's the best beef in the world, and you can pay with Bitcoin or you can pay with fiat. So we know exactly where the cow come from. We know the cow's life. We know what all the grasslands that those cows raised, the soil that it did help regenerate. So we know every touch point of that cattle's life, and every touch point of the cattle as it was processed, every touch point of that beef that is being shipped to you. It was just Cole and I, nobody else.
What is your favorite? I feel pressured into buying one of these boxes, and I'm genuinely looking at all of them. I have two questions for you.
Man, you have to.
I might as well ask you while I've got you on the show. But like, for example, I'm Persian. When you make Persian kebab, you're supposed to use a higher ground beef sort of fat to beef ratio, just so that it sticks to the skewer. So I'm genuinely curious, what is that ratio on the ground beef that you guys have?
Man, it depends on the cow. I mean, for everybody going that 80-20% and everything, you get two different, it's usually, I like a lot of high fat content. And that's what I'm thinking about Cole, which is so great. He does regenerative, and he does grain finish, but we grain finish this non-GMO grain that we know exactly where it came from, and it is as clean as grain as you can get. So his beef has got the fat content. So I would say, we're around 78% beef and then 20-30% on that fat. Do not quote me, because I don't know, man. I don't look at those percentages, and I know what you're talking about. I love a fatty meat, man. That's why I love Cole as far as the protocol and raising the beef.
What's your favorite cut of a cow?
Oh man, it's unlimited. There's whenever you go into this type of understanding of that, what do they sell 4 cuts in the supermarkets these days? And there's going to be over 20 different types of cuts. I mean, there's a picanha cut. There's the Denver. The Denver cut is a really cool one. It's basically, a lot of people don't know what it is, and they never even heard of it. And it's an inexpensive piece of meat. It's not going to be like your tomahawk ribeye, but if you're really going to ask me, my favorite, I mean, I'm from Texas, man. It's a T-bone. It has to be. But you get your fillets, you get your picanhas, you get your Denver cuts, you get your sirloins, you get your cowboy ribeyes, you get flat, you get iron. There's so many things. And once you've had regenerative beef, you'll never eat another slab of meat from the supermarket ever again. You do, it's because you're in a pinch.
Do you hunt as well at all?
Oh, I grew up hunting. Where I grew up, we're about 4 hours from the mountains where I grew up. That's the Southern Rockies out in New Mexico. And so we grew up hunting deer. Yeah, I used to elk hunt with my buddy that I grew up with. So yeah, we've done hog hunts, deer hunts, mules, whitetails, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was living in Albuquerque a few
We
years
always
ago, and
had we
that's
always had venison.
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry, that
Continue.
delay.
Yeah, you had a lot of venison growing up.
No, yeah, we just yeah we had a lot of venison. We made a lot of sausage and everything like that. I mean, how I was raised in this part of Texas, you all had a freezer full of beef. It's just what you had. And then you have your hunting seasons, and you always had your venison, you had your elk if you were lucky. You had your hog, and so it's very common, and that's what I'm trying to make fun of people, basically educate and bring some awareness. Is this is not that difficult. This is where we came from. This is what was the norm. As we centralized our food more and more, we a lot of people got away from hunting, of course, and a lot of people got away from even understanding what real beef is, or even look at the poultry market. I mean, it's been so captured for so many years. You look at these chickens now, man. Seriously, you think that's a real chicken? How much those things are huge. And that is not because it's a natural damn chicken. The chicken's only 30 days old, and here we are off the harvest. People really do not understand what food is, and they basically are doing this because of the labeling systems are so corrupt. The organic, the grass fed, everything that you look at these days, you do not know where that food came from. And so, that's why hunting, of course, you know where the food came from. And I'll eat any type of game out there. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm also kind of curious, Texas Slim. Like I know we've talked a lot about beef, and you've brought up now just like the way too large breasted chickens that KFC's farms have like wandering around. Like curious as to what other types of meats you or your family or your team have ever like explored going down, both growing and
Hmm.
trying to like live off of.
Well, I have this conversation a lot. I love lamb. Lamb is awesome. It's like one
That's
of
my
my
favorite.
favorites as well. I've been on the world a couple times. I've had some great lamb in different places, man, by far. And my local producer here, his name's Dustin. I just got a quarter of a cow from him, but he does sheep and he does fowl and hog. And so there's a good variety that a lot of these ranchers and also slash animal producers, those are the big ones I see definitely is lamb is one of the best things. And it's really good because if you can't be a rancher, if you can't be, a cattleman, you can basically raise sheep. And lamb are awesome for the ground too, as far as the soil. I'm sorry. And so sheep, you see a lot of sheep coming back to the state of Texas, and there's big movements to get back into lamb. I see that's something being very prominent, especially in the Bitcoin space, because it's going to be a little bit more doable. And to steward the land is easier, and steward lamb, the sheep as well, is a little bit different than having a bunch of cattle.
Yeah, there's some my mom actually facilitated there's like a local, a finished landfill. So you got a big grassy area, and rather than pay people to mow it, we just brought in one shepherd and 100 goats. And they would just
Hmm.
come rotate out through the season
Yeah.
and eat down all the grass. It's great.
I mean, that's right there. That's poetic. I mean, that's where we came from, man. That's why this country used to be like an oasis. I mean, every geographical point system in this country was fascinating as far as the nature involved, the soil that we had basically developed, the Midwest, the bison, how the Native Americans lived off of that land. You know, Everything that we've done to the land is just the destruction of the beautiful, the beautiful place that we did have. And for people to be in the regenerative movement like I am, and especially Bitcoiners, and for to be called something else, because we're domestic terrorists, if we're fighting against the globalists and everything like that. If people really understood what freaking soul was and where we actually came from, the narrative wouldn't fly. The psyop and the propaganda is so strong right now that people are that confused that yeah, you can put some goats on a pasture and it's going to regrow the soil, and that general understanding is not really known.
Yeah. Chris, you have any questions, comments?
No, I'm just taking it in.
Taking
Like
it
Alex,
in.
I'm buying a box as we speak from the Beef Initiative. Get it shipped to me.
You guys are all right, man. Hey, did you buy the Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Alex. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say I got the steak lovers. We're gonna try that first.
I think I'm trying the Prime box. It looked pretty good, like a decent amount of beef, and
There
just
you
to
go.
try it out here.
Yeah, we'll drop the website in the chat so people
Hey,
who
and
are watching
also
can...
we just did this week. Yeah, do it. One thing we were doing as well is we did like a 20-pound ground beef box. Okay. I think that comes it's $105, I think, in USD. So if you did 20 pounds, that's a hell of a lot cheaper than the supermarket. And everybody that comes out here and says, well, I don't buy beef from my rancher because it's more expensive. You're actually, it's not true. Eat less. I spend less money on food now than I ever have. It's because I source my animal protein the way I do it through my system of the Beef Initiative. So price is not a big thing if you understand how much you actually waste on the basically random purchasing your food. And the one box you guys didn't buy, and I'm expecting the next one is the Texas Slim's top hand beef box. That's a beauty, man. Look at that. It's got some beef in there.
Texas Slim Top Hand Beef Box. I'm checking that out. Oh, that's got the tomahawk. Ooh, that's tempting.
Yeah, that's got a big. Yeah, you're gonna get it one of these days. You're gonna get it, I promise. But I appreciate you guys getting in there and doing this today. That's what we need. We need Bitcoiners in here. Everybody wants to work. We've got it. And people are coming along, and we're building these nodes across the United States, and it's going to be about decentralizing our freaking food. And everybody talks about it all the time as far as proof of work. Well, let's get some proof of work. Let's start sourcing our food in the ways that Bitcoiners are bringing it to the table. This is a collective effort, man. This is crowdsourcing, a new movement into where we're going as far as Bitcoiners. And we're just getting started with Beef Initiative. I mean, we're about to have a couple of processing centers online in the state of Texas. Our volume is going to go through the roof. And we're going to feed as many people as we can who wants to eat the right type of beef. And it's moved fast, but I mean our foundation and where we are as far as offering and the education that we're doing with the ranchers, the conferences that we're having across the United States, this is becoming something that's a little bit bigger than we thought in the beginning, but we're ready for it to kind of take over this year. In the narrative, our Colorado conference is in July. We're announcing that with formal tickets, I guess, on Friday. And then we've got other partnerships with regenerative people like White Pastures out in Georgia, Will Harris. We're going to have a conference out there in September. And so there's a lot of people that we're bringing to space. We had our first conference in Kerrville this on the 23rd, and we had like 9 really great speakers. So we're getting the Bitcoin community in. As far as speaking, education, we're bringing ranchers into it. Ranchers are meeting Bitcoiners. None of your business. He came to the conference and he said, you had Bitcoiners, orange pilling ranchers, and you had ranchers ranch pilling Bitcoiners. And it was a perfect phrase because that's exactly what's going on here is that we're bridging the gap. And a lot of people starting to figure it out that, a Bitcoiner thinks like a rancher and a rancher thinks like a Bitcoiner. So let's innovate with that type of understanding and awareness we're creating here.
Yeah,
Texas Slim,
absolutely.
you got anything to say to vegans? Feel free to look directly at the camera and just tell vegans how stupid they are.
Well, one thing about that is, vegans are very idealistic, and I bless their hearts because, I wish them well, but we didn't come from eating, we didn't eat the grass. We ate the animals that ate the grass. That's the process of getting true protein that you need. Being a vegan right now, you have to be very wealthy to pull off and being able to pull it off. If you're still buying your produce, and I don't care if it's Whole Foods or if it's, Central Market in Austin, you're not getting the best produce that you can get. And if you just generally buy through supermarkets and you're a vegan, well, you look at those labels and see how much genetically modified crap is in that. Look how many chemicals such as, all the seed oils you're consuming, seed oils being rapeseed, soybean oils, everything that basically has gotten us or basically metabolically bankrupt. I mean, I bless your heart, man, you're not going to make it, because the only thing that you can really rely on right now, especially in our country, is to kind of be sovereign. And the best way to be sovereign is with pure animal protein. So, I mean, I saw a picture the other day. You bring this up. It was Robert Downey Jr. And it was a picture of him, I guess, a year ago, and he went vegan. You go take a look at him now, a year, and you're starting to see this pattern. All these Hollywood people, all these woke people and everything, they're turning into this veganism, but they're looking like they're freaking going through nutritional starvation is what it looks like. So that's what I think about vegans. Bless your heart.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I don't do whatever you want with your time in your life, but I don't think it's very healthy or sustainable. And I don't think it's as cruelty free as they think it is. We were talking about this yesterday, how when you run a combine through a field, it's a massacre of the little ecosystems that popped up there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you want to talk about millions of animals that are basically, even right now, because planting season is moving forward, within the monocropping system, millions and millions of field animals die, from foxes to, mice, of course, rabbits, birds. I mean, it's unlimited, the amount of destruction this monocropping is happening, and they're basically upping the volume on monocropping, and they're now basically going all vegetarian with the fake meat commodity that they're going with. And it's if you're a vegan and you're a vegetarian and you're looking at it because of animal cruelty, well, go look in the damn mirror. Who got proof? I mean, it's not a psyop, it's not a conspiracy theory. The amount of the animals that do basically get destroyed every year is phenomenal, and the general public does not know that.
Here's my unpopular opinion. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You want to eat bugs? You want to eat the freaking grass that grows on my front lawn? You know what? Fine. Axel Fuzz, you are welcome to the grass of my parents' front lawn. Like, my issue with all of this shit is the idea or notion that your perspective or your perspective or your perspective is better than someone else's. The idea that we have to have this collective diet, in my opinion, is what led us down this path to where we were told, hey, just buy this Lunchable for your kid or buy this sugary cereal for breakfast. Like, here's some microwave dinner so you don't have to cook and you don't have to worry about it, because we created this collectivist diet when in fact my body reacts differently to beer than most other people's. My body reacts differently to spicy food than other people, or to beef than other people. And so I make those judgment calls. And this collectivist idea that everyone needs to do this is what, in my opinion, leads us down these wrong paths. And also, I'm getting really fucking sick of people telling me how to live my life. But that's just my mini rant. Sorry, needed to be done.
No, I mean, no, thank you. I mean, I'm glad you did. I don't do shit how you eat either, but you're not going to basically steal the nutrition of my children, and you're not going to weaponize food against me because I put my foot down and I say I'm sick of it. And so by saying that, me as an individual, I'm going to say, well, I know I'm going to understand what food is again, kind of how my grandfather taught me, and I'm going to go back to that because we were a hell of a lot healthier back then. You want to do your vegetarian and you want to do the vegan, that is your choice, man. Go forward. But don't you come at me and don't you step up on me saying that you're going to bring some type of conspiracy about how we're destroying the freaking planet and that a cow is a carbon hazard, well, right there, you just lost all respect from where I stand, because you're living in a lie until you're ready to get rid of that brain fog that has got you to that point. Then, do whatever you're going to do, which is fascinating, because I want everybody to consume whatever they're going to consume, because I know the people that are going with the consumption model, basically, as what the beef initiative is regenerative, pure animal protein, that we're going to survive, and we're going to win this crap too, because people are going to understand with this movement, the food industry shift is that they're going to become even more unhealthier. And we're going to start seeing that within that, there's going to be a balance of awareness and awakening, and people are going to say, yeah, we have been lied to, and they're going to change the ways. The models will change. And if they don't, then they'll sit on their asses and they'll watch TV and they'll consume. So
I think we got a bit of a lag. We're cutting out there a little bit, but I heard the majority of it. So where do you see this network going? Maybe 5-10 years down the line. It looks like we're gonna hike interest rates another 50 basis points. Chris, is that right? We just had do you pay attention to what's going on in the macro environment, in the United States, or you just stay in your lane here?
Yeah, no, we're looking at everything. I'm actually next week I'm having I call it the Texas Slam Signal on my podcast, and we're going to do something like a 30-minute cattle report, and we look at the global and we look at the macro as far as commodities, beef, and everything. Where I see this going, and I'll stay with beef right now, is within the beef industry, you're going to see them turning beef into caviar. They're going to price the common man out of beef in a way to where we're inflated, we're hyperinflation within our food system is already here, especially if it has anything to do with pure animal protein. They're going to try to price that out of most people's markets, and they'll supplement that animal protein with this new fake meat industry. They'll do it in certain ways a lot of people won't even be paying attention to. And so by saying that, yeah, I pay attention to it, but I don't have to pay attention to it as much as all the parrots out there. That's all they do, is they don't go and they don't find solutions, and they just keep on talking about how bad it is. Well, once you kind of follow this protocol, like within the beef initiative of what we're doing, and you focus and you're saying how this network grows, we've got people doing this in Colorado. We've got people doing this in Missouri. We've got people doing it in Oklahoma. They're following the beef initiative. The beef initiative is already spreading out across the United States. And I'm just now starting to basically let everybody know that we can do this, just like we do the Bitcoin meetups. We're doing the ranch meetups. I might hit the road in June and travel all the way up into the Colorado conference and just follow basically a path of Bitcoin meetups and bringing ranchers into those Bitcoin meetups. And those people that go to these Bitcoin meetups are going to have access to that beef, and it's going to be local. And so this is going to catch fire this year. This is happening, and we're going to decentralize our animal protein. And it's going to start in the Bitcoin world. That's why I chose the Bitcoin space, Bitcoin Twitter, to do all this, because I knew that basically Bitcoiners would help us spread out these nodes of networks. And it's happening, and it's happening pretty fast.
Absolutely. Texas Slim, I have to hop, but these two gentlemen will finish up the interview with you. It was a pleasure to meet you today, and I hope we can work together in the future. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. I cannot believe Alex
is thanks for buying that box, man.
Now.
Yeah, no worries. I'm sure I'll get more down the line. I can't wait to taste it, man. I'll see y'all later.
I need to reiterate this.
Yeah, let me know how it goes.
Alex has left us because he doesn't want to talk to us anymore, and he wants to go on a different podcast. Cannot stress how disrespected I feel.
That's fine.
More to come from this. Anyways, Texas Slam. We've talked veganism. We've talked a lot about the work you guys are doing. Talk to us about what comes next. What happens? How does this scale out? Do you guys look to expand, or do you guys look to orange pill? I don't know if orange pill is the right word, but maybe like I'm gonna say red for like a rare or medium rare cut, but like red
Right.
pill, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, how do we get more farmers to
Yeah.
replicate
Well,
this around the country?
yeah, and that's a good question. It's a slow roll, man. It has to come with a lot of time preference. And where that starts is education. You don't go up to a rancher and say, "Hey, do you accept Bitcoin?" You have to know how to talk to a rancher. You have to really gain some respect, and then you kind of discover everything about them and why they do what they do. You had that conversation with them. You know, the division of interpersonal communication in the United States right now and in the world is horrible. People don't know how to go up and talk to people anymore. And so that's what I said from the very beginning is I'm gonna go shake a damn rancher's hand. Okay, not everybody can do that, like I said before, but what you can do is you can come through the Beef Initiative, and how this network grows is just like Bitcoin grow. It's growing symbiotically with Bitcoin because every Bitcoin meetup should be talking about their food, and they should be talking about animal protein. And throughout, the next year, like I said, we're having 4 national conferences this year. There was a lot of people that came from 13 different states to that conference. And so we're building those nodes of understanding. For this year, what we're going to do is we're providing education to the ranchers. There's going to be a webinar series that we'll do that speaks definitely directly to the rancher and the why of Bitcoin first. By doing that, we've developed basically an online e-commerce system that we can sell to any rancher that wants to come through the Beef Initiative. We're going to start offering those e-commerce services. We're saying, let's get you up to speed. Let's get you orange pilled, and basically we'll call it ranch pilling. I like that, ranch pilling. So we'll ranch pill Bitcoiners. And so we'll do this together, man. This is crowdsourcing. This is an open source. This is an open source network building. Basically, I like to say it's going to be based on sound money, sound health, sound communications for a sound future. And so that's basically our mantra this year. This is how we're going to do it. Once again, if you're in Bitcoin and you're not looking at your food supply and how you access your food supply, you're going to get behind. But what happens in Manhattan, and we go through some type of shortage? Manhattan clears out in 3 days. And if you're somebody that's in Manhattan that knows how to source your animal protein and you're kind of being proactive, you don't have to buy full cow, but you can have a month's supply of beef, and it helps your pocketbook. You don't stress about all this noise out there, all these distractions about what's going on with our food supply. You take action and you help out and you contribute. If you're going to, if you're attending podcasts, let's bring in the discussion of our pure animal protein, the Beef Initiative. And once we all start doing that, it just scales every little community across the United States. We've got a couple of guys in Missouri, small town Missouri, man. They're already feeding their local community dairy, beef, fowl, eggs. I mean, it's catching on, and they're creating these little food sheds. And so there's a lot to catch up on within the Bitcoin community to say, hey, we need to catch up with these decentralized food producers that are actually been here all the time. Let's go talk to them. Let's educate them about Bitcoin. And you just don't go up there and you let them know the why first. And then after we let them know the why, they're going to understand. And then we can kind of do that transformation in that adoption period. 2022 is going to be a huge adoption period for transactional Bitcoin and understanding the store value.
And right now, like on your website, I can pay in Bitcoin. Are you guys utilizing the Lightning Network? Is this on chain? Talk to us a little bit about sort of how you guys.
Yeah, we're right now we can moving in the future. We're going to partner up with the Oshi app. It's too because the Oshi is a rewards program, and it's a kick-ass app, and it's evolving fast. It's that'll perfect for the ranchers, and you can use we use OpenNode, BTC Pay. We do, it's on the Lightning Network for sure. We're going to have our own personal node in Texas. We're connecting those nodes. That's under development right now. As we are basically, on the Lightning Network, how we're going to do as the Lightning nodes build, so do the beef nodes. And so transactionally, we'll basically, you have to have your wallet. It's just like any transaction. You go there, you got Blue Wallet, you're on the Lightning Network, you can use it and you pay, and it's as easy as that. It's very simple. We're not doing it by KYC. You would have to have your email address, so we can ship your dang beef. We have to have your address, of course. But, as far as going into this adoption period, transactional Bitcoin, it's all over the place. But I think we've got it down. We have a very good roadmap with partnerships with like Oshi, BTC Pays coming out with some releases. Let's see the integration into, all these other payment applications, and it'll take care of itself. But right now, it's basically as easy as it gets. We like to take all that friction away from this, and that's what the biggest intimidation that a lot of people have is the friction that is involved with, paying with Bitcoin.
Love that. We've posted the link so that any of you guys who are watching, it's in our chat box over on the side. We'll post it one more time for you guys in Texas Slim. For our audience members who want to keep up to date with all the stuff that you're doing, where's the best place for them to keep up with you?
Yeah, just on Twitter, it's at Modern Tea Man. You can do that. Beefinitiative.com. That's really the best informative place you can go, especially my Twitter. And then we have our Beef Initiative Twitter account too. It's at Beef Initiative. And on Telegram, it's at Beef Initiative. So there's a lot of good chats going on. There's a lot of good, conversations. We're bringing in chefs. We're bringing in recipes. We're bringing in cuts of the cow, like you brought up earlier. We're bringing in, actually, here pretty quick, the Beef Initiative, we're going to be talking about, how do you obtain cattle in the Bitcoin space. And so there's a lot of stuff that's coming down the pipe, man. And stay tuned to me. There's a lot of announcements that are happening Friday next week. I encourage everybody, man. You guys, the Bitcoiners have been great so far. We're kind of slow into, buying beef with Bitcoin. If you don't want to spend your Bitcoin, I don't want to spend my Bitcoin. I don't want the ranchers to be able to get Bitcoin. So, you can pay in fiat or you pay in Bitcoin. And you spread the word, talk to your families. There's a newsletter you can go to, check it out, and Texas Slim's newsletter. There's a lot of good education there. There's like about a book volume in there by now, everything that I've written about food intelligence. We come with proof and we come with work. Now we're giving proof of work to everybody. So I appreciate you guys, and this is good to have these conversations and get some awareness in the Bitcoin community.
Awesome. Well, guys, make sure you give Texas Slim a follow. And if you, like us, want to eat as much meat that's really, what's going into your food, and then what you're putting in your food, make sure you check out what him and his team have available. We're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and then Chris and I are going to be talking news and notes from around the world.